Fantastic. Moving right along. Great panel there that we just talked on tokenization, crypto, and a little bit of legislation talk I also heard in there. As a quick reminder for anyone new, we do have our tokenization standards reports. You can scan the QR code, and there's some key takeaways there, but the report is available online. We co-authored with Dune and Gauntlet, who have also been here and joining us. But for this next panel, we are now talking about data for RWAs. RWAs are getting tokenized, and by that we mean private credit, we mean public equities, we mean real estate, all sorts of assets that have unique data sets or data related to them. And so that's obviously been a big focus for us at Redstone, as well as for other companies in the space that want to power it in their own verticals. Unfortunately, oh, there we go. As you might have noticed in the agenda, Bloomberg was scheduled to come. Unfortunately, we had an inconvenience there. But please welcome to the stage our panelists, Peter Gaffney from Inveniam, Mikołaj from Redstone, and our moderator, John Biggs.
All right, welcome. I just took a lot of allergy medicine, so I'm very low energy right now. So I want these guys to really carry me through this. Suddenly I get hit by, I don't know, some kind of tree or something just now, so I feel like a mess. But I wanted to be here for you guys. So Emilie couldn't be here. She was with Bloomberg, but she wasn't able to come. Instead, we have Peter Gaffney, Director of DeFi and Digital Trading at Inveniam, and Mikołaj Glinka. He's RWA Product Lead from Redstone. So Peter, Mikołaj, introduce yourselves. Tell us what you work on a day-to-day basis, and let's just go. Let's go from there. Peter.
Everybody, good afternoon. I'm Peter Gaffney, Director of DeFi and Digital Trading at Inveniam. Inveniam is a decentralized data management operations platform for private market assets in an agentic future. If you could get a longer tagline than that, I would love to buy you a drink later. But effectively what that is we work with private market asset owners, large sovereign wealth funds, investment banks, asset managers, and individual kind of family offices, and enable a fully data sovereign environment for us to browse into their data rooms, extract key line item data points from private credit, private equity, real estate, infrastructure, and actually enable that we hash that on blockchain and then enable agents to interact with that, enable pushing it downstream in DeFi applications, and then also third parties for like auditors, accountants, appraisers to come in. Again, all in a fully data sovereign manner where you're not making another copy, no leakage beyond what your existing data storage is. And my background was actually with the Secure Token Advisors team, helping on the tokenized conference and doing advisory work before this.
Good afternoon, my name is Miko. I'm on the product side here with Redstone. So Redstone, as you probably know, we were founded 5 years ago as an Oracle provider. We are still an Oracle provider, and we were actually the fastest growing Oracle on the market. But since then, we also moved on to providing different types of data, not only price feeds. And our offering currently also spans solutions around redemption enhancement, around Oracle extractable value products that help to route the value on the lending protocols back to the protocol. And also risk ratings on the creditor side, which is also very important because as DeFi matures, we need more informed decisions around risk, especially when the TradFi actually enters the space.
So that's an interesting comment, the idea of the DeFi maturing. What is the current state of the art for you folks? What have you seen in terms of current state of the art for placing these things on chain and managing the data that's coming out of these things? What are you seeing that's changed in the last 6 months, let's say?
Well, we know a lot of this really started with public market assets, right? Treasuries first, money market funds. Now, I mean, stocks the last 6 months, probably the fastest growing asset class, maybe private credit, but I would say that's nuanced there. In terms of actual DeFi usability, I would say like public equities have been kind of the trailblazer. All that data is publicly accessible, right? There's Edgar database, you pull it from a number of different reputable feeds. What Redstone does so well is actually, taking that data but making it usable in DeFi and portable and reliable. A lot of people could say, hey, we scrape data and we push that on chain. Great. There's a lot, though, downstream that you need to account for and think about. So I would say you're seeing a lot of new additions into that market that are trying to make the data that's already accessible usable, but the reality is you need reliability over everything. I would say still the laggard is on the private market data side. You got tokenized private credit funds that, maybe let's say 70% of the book is a liquid assets, 30% of the book is like publicly traded CLOs. They'll say, hey, we price this on a daily basis, but really it's just that 30% tranche that's in the public market getting priced. The remaining 70% is probably monthly, and we all know the lag on that could be anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. So either way, you're playing behind if you're a DeFi investor. What we see, like the emerging vault vehicles, which was all day yesterday and earlier today, is amazing, on-chain asset management, but that begets real-time data necessities, right? So something like what we focus on is every time a new data doc pops into the data room that we browse into, boom, we pick that up, extract the key line items, run it through an auditor or a registered valuation agent's automated valuation model, and we're able to feed that downstream in DeFi via a Redstone partnership. So long way of saying the public side is really taken off because all that data is accessible and ready to work with. The private side is still definitely a laggard.
Right. So I'll maybe tag along a little bit on the equity narrative. So one of the strongest needs that we've seen in the market over the past 6 months was actually data around stocks and equities. So that's why also one of the new products that we have launched some time ago is Redstone Live, which basically with very low latency provides data for perpetual protocols.
So is multi-source price aggregation still the right model for this? Do we need different types of oracles? What are you saying on that front?
So maybe I'll take this one. So of course, like different types of assets need different type of price feeds. So Oracle, people mostly think about us, getting multiple nodes, getting data from multiple venues and sources, then making sure that these prices are truly representative, not being manipulated, aggregating them in the correct way, and then safely delivering them on-chain. But this is, let's say, the more traditional approach to oracles. But as the markets have evolved, we also need to adapt what we do on the oracle side. So we not only have typical price feeds, but we also have fundamental feeds. We also have NAV feeds. We also have proof of reserves. So this is evolving. Different type of asset needs different type of data. So especially right now on the RWA side, the biggest request is basically NAV pricing.
Well said, Mikołaj. It goes way beyond just a pure price feed, right? It goes way beyond, hey, this is Yahoo Finance or this is my Bloomberg terminal. It's actually pushing everything downstream, and you have now tens of billions of dollars of applications, of deposits, of looping, pretty much reliant on that Oracle feed. So it's way more of a holistic package, proof of reserves, ongoing reporting, NAV calculations, input calculations that go into that output, way more than just, hey, here's the price feed, and you could, we'll show you on chain where it maps to. So it's certainly like the backbone of DeFi. I think that will only continue as more and more assets come on chain.
Will we ever see a, I don't know, open source / completely decentralized source for this sort of information that doesn't require a third party? I mean, obviously there are blockchains that are disconnected from third parties, but will we ever see one that's just generally accepted through everybody?
Inveniam IO is designed to do that for private market assets, but there's always there's always a piece. Data has to come from somewhere, no matter what. Whether it comes from an issuer, a fund admin, a third-party accountant, appraiser, whatever. Like, if anyone's been following DeFi market the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of blow-ups on the proof of reserve side, and saying, hey, we get our data from certain issuers, and they've either misreported, they've made errors, but we're only as good as the data we get. And unfortunately, unless you're working with KPMG, Deloitte, PwC, validated entities that are doing this, that will always be a bottleneck. So to say there's going to be eventually an end-to-end, fully decentralized system, it's hard to say because there's always, an entry point that's necessary.
Yes, maybe I'll add a little bit to that. So what's interesting is that for many of those assets, you do have a custodian. that we basically need to get the price from. But then there's a number of things that we can do on the technology side to make sure that we've got like a reliable trail that is actually auditable, which makes the credibility of those prices higher. And there's a bunch of things that we can do in order to see whether there is no discrepancies that might be basically because of an error or manipulation.
So continue on into tokenization. So we've basically solved the idea of tokenization. Why is RWA value sitting idle instead of being used as collateral?
Yes, that's true. So, and there's a couple of reasons, and maybe just to get some numbers out. We have approximately 33 billion of RWAs on-chain. If you look at DeFi Llama, approximately 3 billion is in DeFi, but the reality is that even the 3 billion is an elevated metric. Because as we mentioned, right, there is big activity around looping, for instance. So for instance, when you look at the analytics, the 3 billion that sits in DeFi is the elevated number because part of that is looping, is $1 showing up a couple of times on those dashboards. But in terms of the reasons why it is happening that not all of those assets are productive, I mean, certainly one thing is the hacks and the exploits that we've had recently. So simply the appetite for risk is not as high as it used to be. Second thing probably is around regulations, right? There is still a regulatory risk to making some of those assets freely tradable. So many of the issuers and tokenization projects decide for the time being to restrict some of the movements. So for instance, both sides of the trade need to be KYC'd. The AML needs to happen. So probably that's the second reason. And maybe the third reason that we can think of is maybe the redemption periods. RWAs have functioned in a world where it is completely fine for the redemption to take anything between a couple of days up to 6 months. But unfortunately, DeFi is constructed in a different way. We need atomic and synchronous transactions. So for instance, if the liquidation needs to happen on a lending protocol, we need this liquidity instantaneously. So that's why, for instance, we saw that problem and we cooperate with Symbiotic on a solution that's called Redstone Settle that allows the liquidity to be available instantaneously while a counterparty bids for that asset and then takes a small fee in order to wait for the redemption to actually happen off-chain.
Very interesting question and great answer. Fully agree. I'm no structuring expert, but I think waiting for regulation is a cop-out answer post like 2025. But definitely, it's not apples to apples when you have security or an exempted tokenized asset and you want to just port that into DeFi. I'm going to reference the on-chain lending and private credit panel yesterday. Christine Moy said DeFi wants instant liquidity, right? And that structure does not map with traditional private credit. And I'm a big fan of Maple Finance, who was also up here, Sid. And their Syrup USD product, Syrup USDC, is essentially a non-US retail-enabled stablecoin backed by their over-collateralized lending that is only for like Reg D, Reg S, and qualified purchasers. So it's almost a pseudo, I don't want to say backdoor, but it's a non-US stablecoin that does get drips and yields down from other products. That's an interesting structure to look at. And that's something that is a DeFi-enabled, connect your wallet, deploy USDC and get Syrup USDC back, yield-generating asset that now you could use in DeFi. So it's not like the individual, over-collateralized loans are being used, but this other vehicle. And I've seen a few other projects that are making use of that structure. So it's interesting to see how that will, elevate over time, how that will be enforced over time, how that will be looked at. But those types of structures, I mean, when you talk to any vault provider that is looking at RWAs seriously, they say, hey, it's got to be loopable in some way, shape, or form so we could really push it into the DeFi channels that want to buy that and want to get certain yields. We know that comes with extra risk, but that's not about this point. But that's a thing to really keep an eye on in terms of DeFi usability.
Okay. Another pricing question. So when a position gets liquidated, who is eating loss right now? And how do we How do we measure that risk for a liquidated position?
Right. So of course we can talk about the things that are happening, on the off-chain side and the on-chain side. So on the off-chain side, of course, depending on the structure of the product that is actually being tokenized, and of course the typical, let's say, architecture is that it's the borrower, then it's basically the junior tranche, the senior tranche. But probably what's most interesting is the on-chain part. So it depends a little bit on the architecture of the lending protocol that we talk about. So for instance, Morpho has an architecture where the markets are isolated. Aave, on the other hand, has a pooled liquidity. So it depends. And of course, apart from the architecture itself of the DeFi protocols, then you've got things that happen just because they need to happen. So first, like when we had the recent exploit on KelpDAO, at the end of the day, we had the bad debt that was basically resolved by the joint community effort, where suddenly 300 million of bad debt was basically contributed by the actors, just so that the DeFi space does not take a systematic hit. But in terms of the risk, this is important work that needs to be done on the risk rating side. So for instance, on the Credora side and the work that we do over there, we basically map out hundreds of inputs on both the markets, the vaults, and the assets that we are rating. And this gets turned into very actionable one-letter risk rating that basically informs educated decision-making and basically gives you an information whether the yield that you're actually seeing in one of those products is sustainable and does it basically make sense in terms of the risk that you're taking on.
Very well said. Nothing further to add to the mechanics there. I would say one trend we see much more, even in conversation at this conference, at the happy hour, on Twitter, the need for first loss capital and junior tranches. Right? I think a lot of the OG protocols said, hey, we're purely a lending protocol. You put up capital, other people will open their own market as borrowers, but in the reality, that means the protocol takes zero risk. A big hack happens, a big loss happens, that's all on the depositors to take that hit. So as you move more into these RWA lending platforms and offerings, they're saying, whoa, we need some measure of first loss capital, of skin in the game for us to be comfortable lending into. So I think that's also, we're seeing Roico, we're seeing a number of other tranching protocols, fixed term protocols that pipe into Morpho to get a blended variable fixed term rate, like downside protection, lock in your rate, and shift risk from there onto the variable rate depositors. So a lot of cool structures coming up, but it's still emerging and it's probably going to blend into more of a traditional side when you look at it.
This would have been a fun one for Emilie from the Bloomberg standpoint, but how do we measure data reliability? We have data coming in from multiple sources. What are we looking for when it comes to what to trust?
I wish I had a better answer on that. I would say it goes all the way back to the inputs that we get. One of our specialties is we trace data, hashes from a blockchain, 15 different blockchains if you want, and click that hash, go back into the data room that's fully permissioned based on how clients set that up, and it actually takes you back to the source input. So if you say, hey, this is the NAV that was stamped on chain, oh, I don't know, how do I trust that? Click in, if you're permitted to see, if you're a vault, if you're a Redstone, if you're a vault curator, and you have access to see whatever the data is, it'll push you right back to the actual source data. So you can verify straight from the source. These are the 10 loans that I have that went into this calculation. Now, who supplied that data is always the golden question. Was it the fund admin? Was it the issuer? A third party, trusted party, whatever. That word trust is kind of taboo in this space, but you know what we're talking about here. So that's kind of what I would say from my lens personally.
Mm-hmm. You're right. So just maybe adding to that really quick, I think it's very interesting that we see this where the TradFi meets, DeFi. So previously, we had custodians, auditors, basically, that we need to trust. Right now, this blends, right? Because at least part of this responsibility is now taken on by the tech.
So we've been talking about interoperability across chains for years. There are tools that, I don't know, move you across from Bitcoin and Ethereum, but there's also plenty of other chains that we could be talking about here. But a lot of these things are still disconnected. So what practical steps do we need to make to allow tokenized assets to move across platforms and protocols?
That's a good one. I'm seeing a lot of cool models from Centrifuge's hub and spoke model to others who are writing on multiple chains to make them quantum resistant. That's less on the asset side, more on the data side. But the reality is, I think we've elevated pretty nicely the last 2 years, DeFi as a whole, from having, selecting 3 to 5 different chains for what you want to buy your asset on, to now it's kind of obfuscated, and you could just say, this is the asset I'm buying. If you have preference, your trades can get routed to a certain chain, but you don't necessarily have to individually select. I think that's probably a pretty key unlock. As you see all these earn platforms come out, like Kraken Earn, Fireblocks Earn, it's going to be impossible to have people, individual clients, choose chains and then route it that way. If you have something that's more aggregated in the back end, that's what I see kind of working out here. Now, that doesn't answer the real question, which is what are the actual mechanisms to go cross-chain? There's a lot of providers in the space now on that, not my forte. But I do like the models that I see to make it easy on the actual end user, the investor, the depositor, just to get that thing going and scale.
Yes, I completely agree. Maybe one thing to add is that interesting thing is also we can think about the interoperability, we can talk about standards, we can talk about the tech powering that, but quite often at the end of the day it's the human error that can blow everything up. And once again, thinking of the recent exploit in the Cable DAO, at the end of the day, that was like a bridge exploit that came down to basically a lazy setup, a basic configuration. So it's still a human error.
Mm-hmm. So to manage institutions, you need a lot of KYC. You need a lot of understanding of customer acquisition, where they're headed. What are you seeing right now in terms of allowing this data to be used in a major institution and to ensure compliance and identity, all of that good stuff?
It's always been a key topic, and I would say we're seeing good trends moving from KYC that exists purely off-chain in a traditional brokerage feel to being actually usable on-chain. Right, that's key. Not to sacrifice quality or ability of the compliance at all, but rather, I'm thinking about a credit token and InvestReady, who's in the room, saying we do investor accreditation. We have for 10+ years for some large clients. We offer a credit token now. If you hold this in your wallet and it traces directly back to your existing accreditation and KYC checks that the company does, if it's in your wallet, you are verified as an accredited investor, or whatever the token represents in your case. And that's something that you could have third-party DeFi protocols that don't know you directly, don't have to sign up with you, actually onboard and interact with and make use of for their clients. And we see a number of that on other platforms that you've seen, different ID services that are actually saying, yeah, as long as we can verify your wallet, probably double opt it back to you, make sure it's verifiable and usable, that's a great precursor to actually use tokenized assets on-chain. If you go a step further, you'll have KYA, know your agent, and eventually have the end-to-end stack from human, on-chain wallet, on-chain ID, to your agents to actually go out there in the capital markets for you.
Yeah, really good answer. I'm just wondering, at some point when we will give the agent the power to act on our behalf, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And yeah, will we not get surprised at some point with things happening that we didn't want to happen?
Certainly TBD on that. But as a whole, this topic's been since the dawn of the industry. How do we do KYC on-chain for people that want that? And obviously the industry needs it. It was obvious to a lot of people, but also to a lot, no? That's a big precursor. We're seeing a lot of good progress.
Well, that's going to be an interesting point, right? The idea that these, if we're talking about agentic finance or something like that, the system presumably should know whose wallet it's working with, and you're going to have all that. You're going to have all that KYC already embedded. Is that anathema to the philosophy behind blockchains, or are we still, or is it essentially the only way forward? Like in most cases, you're dealing with something that somebody who wants to be private, right? But most institutions are going to want something, especially if they're dealing with agentic systems, AI systems. They're going to want some sort of KYC and some sort of identity management. What's going to be easier? Is it going to be easier to maintain status quo, or is it going to be easier to start moving into this world where every wallet is essentially identified?
I think it'll for any innovation team, it's obviously something they have to tackle. Like all institutions need auditable agent activities. We launched Inveniam chain for that exact purpose, the data verification layer for AI agents to say, hey, this is what my agent is. These are the 5 data sets it read, and this is the outcome it produced. Hash that on chain. Over the years, hopefully nothing goes wrong, nothing goes wrong, nothing goes wrong. But if something does go wrong, you as an institution are probably on the hook for whatever that happened there, right? You could trace that back to, oh, it was this day, this time, 2 years ago. This is the decision that happened that triggered this domino to fall or whatever, and these are the data points that went into it. So I think as you get more volume on-chain via agents, there's going to always be more work to do to manage that. A whole industry is going to pop up, if not already, just to handle that type of stuff. I would say it sounds really cool to work on. Is it a main focus of everybody? I don't know. I think people, when you look at blockchains, like everyone that's been in the space for a while, just jumps directly forward into all the new stuff like this. But then you have new entrants who are still saying, hey, should I launch a stable coin, a money market fund? How do I onboard, institutional custody for my own uses? And that's kind of like, step 2, step 3, not step 20.
On the technology side, there's some things that probably will be helpful. We've already had tech like ZK proofs, full homomorphic encryption being developed to provide this compliance, for instance, the layers 2 already proved that ZK can actually help and is actually scalable. So now the question is when these will actually enter and be helpful on the AML, KYC, and compliance side.
And even I was never too huge on the privacy coins and chains. We all saw Zcash last year pop off 5x plus. But even recently, that trend has stayed. You have Morpho enabling now a market, I think, with privacy-enabled deposits. So any depositor, it's all obfuscated on-chain. So you get your exact same execution, but a lot of privacy coverage. So looking at institutional use for vaults, that could be something they need.
Are there any red flags that you can see from the data when it comes to a tokenization project? Have you noticed anything, especially maybe in Redstone, where I don't know, it's just it's not consistent, or there is some sort of statistical analysis that you guys can do to see if there's a problem in something, in an asset?
I think it's relatively early to come up with any conclusion in terms of if there's any particular fundamental problems in the space. But we'll simply see what happens, because the more volume we have, the more use cases are actually on-chain. The more utilization we actually see, then we see what happens.
I mean, just in terms of pattern recognition, I was just thinking. So a lot of projects work well in isolation, but it's hard for them to connect to the broader ecosystem. So what standards or infrastructure are needed to allow, or what's still missing to allow RWAs to scale globally?
We've seen a lot of token standards over the years, right? 3643, you have 4626 on the vault side now, 7540. A more recent one, 89 something. I'll round because I don't know the exact number. But all different standards that over time blend in KYC and AML, like we were talking about before. Blend in vault input output standardability. Oh, upgrade that standardability. Upgrade this compliance. Like there's always new standards coming out. But none of them have really taken off beyond ERC20, right? Sorry, take the vault side away. Nothing of the compliance standards has really taken off besides ERC20, which is the most basic form of it, right? For ERC 1400 and 1404, used by a couple platforms, but not really at scale. 3643, not a whole lot of DeFi activity. So there's still certainly a off-chain component whereby a lot of the large issuers of the RWAs you guys know very well do all the KYC off-chain, and then whitelist wallet addresses, and then do what we talked about before and place a similar, soul-bound token that verifies this user is accredited or a QP. So it's very much still like manual on the onboarding side, which inherently is going to limit a lot of the downstream activity. So even if new standards come to market, it's really about who's adopting that standard, not just that the standard exists. It's the good tech versus distribution. Where do you want to be along that sliding scale?
So do you maybe have an intuition on who has the best distribution and who has the highest probability to win?
In terms of distribution, I would look at just the leaders on the stock side, like Ondo, Securitize obviously on their registered side. But also looking at the vault side, Morpho is the key leader right now. Veta's coming up, Upshift, a handful of the platforms. The reality is when they start to push out a certain standard that attracts actual deposits to them, that's going to force that standard on other people. And then if you have, let's say you have this standard where 100 million net new deposits came in, now 500, and these people want to go loop that or they want to use that in other leverage protocols, you need that protocol to also pipe into that. Right, so that's what I'm personally curious to see if any standards actually take off in that way beyond just what we've seen on the ERC20 side.
I certainly agree, right? At the end of the day, quite often it's about distribution. We've seen, like many examples of good tech or good, templates not being simply usable because even though they might be good, the distribution is not there.
I guess to ask the question another way, is there any specific technology that you want to see associated with this? Do you want somebody to build something for you that you haven't seen yet?
Good. I hate to say no, but I think there's a lot of good tech right now. It's more about them linking together. I'm a big SUI ecosystem fan, and I see more happening on SUI native vaults with SUI native lending protocols, actively looking for RWAs. So kind of tying in our entire conversation, getting that end-to-end stack built up, and just getting the flywheel going with product people want to use. I think the industry is at a point where there's a lot of tech built. There's a lot of tokenization platforms. There's a lot of vault infrastructure, a lot of lending protocols, a lot of DEXs, a lot of perps marketplaces. Bring product that these platforms want to use. You probably don't need new general purpose technology. You need either tailor-made technology that's going to bring a whole new asset class in or contribute to all the tech that exists right now. That's what I would like to see most from the industry.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would agree. So probably what we need to see is basically unification. Because at the end of the day, it's all about bringing liquidity together.
All right. Last question here. So looking ahead 3 to 5 years, what will people take for granted about on-chain financial data that still feels difficult or impossible today? Pretty esoteric.
3 to 5 years, what will they take for granted? My thesis is vaults are going from 10 to 100 billion the next 24 months. I said that 2 months ago. I think they're at 12 billion now, so we're on the right path. Got to up those numbers. But I think just the composability of everything. When you look at TradFi, structured products, the ability to collateralize things and use pretty much any type of asset at margin at different haircuts, and advance rates is like key. The whole industry is built on credit. And I hear some people say, "Oh, DeFi is just a bunch of leverage. It's not a real thing." Well, is that not capital markets as a whole? There's a entire industry built around using other assets to make new things happen. I say that with a grain of salt, but the reality is, I think that's what we'll take for granted. Looking 5 years from now, the future of asset management, fully on-chain, everything is composable. You got a private credit tranche here, you got a money market token here, you have something else here, maybe a stable coin, a Genius Act stable coin, generating yields here, all blended into a bucket, or all usable with Falcon X or Galaxy, all these different supporters. That will feel like second nature, and it's very far than what's happening right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point. And I think that blockchains are inherently transparent, and them being transparent brings a new standard because traditional markets used to have these knowledge and information silos. The transparency of blockchains allows for the composability, allows for, at the end of the day, higher efficiency of capital.
All right, so final question. If these folks need anything specific, what do you think you could offer anybody out here in the audience if they're looking for something? I guess like from a Redstone perspective, or from your perspective, just how can either they be helpful or you be helpful to them? What do you think?
Inveniam can do a lot on the decentralized data side. So if you are a private market asset owner, private credit, real estate, private equity, infrastructure, esoteric assets, and you're looking to push that into DeFi, it all starts with the data, the real-time usability of that, as we're talking about, and using that to build the end-to-end ecosystem. You don't want to launch a stale token, hope you could raise money with a Reg D exemption. You want to start with the right onboarding, be able to show everything that we know DeFi is looking for on the RWA side, and feasibly push that through end-to-end. I would say that's our bread and butter.
Mm-hmm. Right. We want to help asset issuers grow their assets. That's the end game.
All right, so I'm going to close this one off. Peter, Mikołaj, thank you for this. It's been fascinating. All right?
Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic rest of the conference.
What an amazing, amazing 3 days we have had with everyone joining us here at Tokenize This 2026. Thank you all for sticking around, and we are going to ask you to stick for one more very special fireside chat, and I guarantee it won't take all 40 minutes, so don't worry. But look, it's been an incredible 3 days, as I said, and we appreciate you guys attending, everyone that sponsored us, everyone that has contributed to the success of this event, which we've been growing for. This is now our 4th edition, and the first one under the Redstone umbrella, and I'm sure more to come. So, very special fireside chat that we have in store for you. One of the original co-creators of Tokenize This, Mr. Herwig Konings, and the new proud owner of Tokenize This, Mr. Marcin Kazimierczak.
All right. Thank you, Jason. I am so proud to have created this event with him. It wouldn't have been possible without Jason, without a doubt, from the very, very beginning. And thank you for everyone who is still here. This is the best closing notes. Come on, it's going to be great. Who had a good time? Did you have a good time? Right on, I love it. Well, that makes me very excited, and this is a true pleasure, because Marcin and I have been able to start to talk to each other more and more ever since we decided to team up, and I gotta say, I was a little nervous. I wonder if you were too. You just took the whole team. You guys are all over the world, Poland and everywhere, and you flew them out to New York not knowing just exactly what you were gonna walk into. Were you nervous at all?
I wasn't, and the reason is very simple. It's a World Cup, and we are coming to New York City, so if Tokenize This was a flop, we could just go and watch some football games on stadiums.
That's the right attitude.
Well, no. Honestly, before we took a decision to take over Tokenize This and make this strategic move towards the US, we did a very deep due diligence of the previous editions. Right, as you know, it's the 4th one. People were extremely happy with the previous events, so when we hear this kind of references, it was a fairly simple decision to take over. Also, I have to say, I highly value the attitude and professionalism of both Herwig, Jason, and the Tokenize This team. As Redstone, we've been known as one of the most solid infrastructure providers in crypto in general. And we've been running oracles and price feeds for over 6 years without a single hiccup, downtime event, or mispricing moment in the crypto scene. So we wanted to make sure to have also the exposure for the US market a bit broadly, right? As we flew in over here, we met for the first time in person. That was also like a great moment. I had a very good expectation about the turnout, and truly, truly happy to see all you guys making deals, having fruitful conversations. I hope it's going to only be better and better.
Well said. In fact, this event isn't anything truly without you showing up to make it all possible and happen, right? And shout out to the sponsors and, of course, to Redstone, truly making this an even better event than last year thanks to their support. But going beyond, obviously, how excited I am to work with you guys and for you to take over Tokenize This, but let's talk about the room for a sec. Let's do a temperature check. How do you think people felt about where we are in the industry? Were they doing deals? Are people still learning? What was your takeaway?
Well, my takeaway was I was pretty surprised to hear many of the people came here like again. So it wasn't their first time at Tokenize This. So it proves that the quality of the event is very, very, very high. Another thing that struck me was many registrations we saw in the afternoon on Tuesday, because some people met for dinners or some afternoon meetings on Tuesday and were saying, hey, this is a great event. Like, you should come over the next day. And then we started seeing like new registration, which was like, wow, this is like a beautiful word of mouth that is spreading around New York City institutional circles. We have to say that crypto in general as the industry has seen some hiccups in the past couple of months and weeks. However, on the institutional expansion side, I've never been more excited and more positive, and this has been the kind of like a vibe I got in the room. We are at the all-time high of the tokenized assets market cap, crossed 31 billion. We're at all-time high of stablecoins with 315 billion on the market. And we had largest financial institutions in the world in this room. Like, we had people from DTCC, Citi, JP Morgan, Fidelity, BlackRock, Invesco, Franklin Templeton. I could go on and on. So it just shows...
We don't have that much time.
Well, it just shows the quality of people in the room has been of the absolutely highest aspect. And what's even more important, it's not anymore the discussion like whether we should tokenize or not. It's more like, hey, all right, how are we going to scale that and make sure that it's going to go parabolic? And how we create this ecosystem that would give additional features and programmability to the assets that are already living on chain, so that we can harness all the advantages of the tokenization and utilizing distributed ledger technology for those financial instruments.
Yeah, and I would actually like to validate that, having seen multiple editions now, right? It really has transformed and evolved into, we're just learning, we just want to, test the waters, to, no, we are doing commercial activity and this industry is about to rise. I would actually guess that by this time next year, we're going to be in a really different place in a very positive way. Let's go for 50 billion RWAs by the end of the year, huh? Tell me about how you think by next year. Are you bullish about RWAs? Is this a slow, continuing to grow situation? Or like you were saying, could this be hyperbolic growth from here on out?
Well, naturally, everyone is looking at Clarity, like what's going to happen over there. And it's been mentioned like on this stage probably like 50 times. Though what I'm really, really happy about is to see this trend that even though cryptocurrency market can be volatile, the RWA market cap and expansion has been fairly steady. Naturally, there were moments of drops, but if you draw a line, it's like going upwards all the time. 50 billion by end of the year, I would say it's very much probable. I would go probably even higher. If Clarity goes through, I would be even as, let's say, bold to say that next year we can see like 300 billion or 500 billion, right? Then going for this first T over there. And I do believe many of the speakers on the stage were sharing this kind of like an attitude. But one thing that has been very much repeated by plenty of people I've chatted in the room and I've overheard is making use of those RWAs as collateral for lend and borrow. and in general for DeFi usage, because right now only a very small fraction of tokenized assets are actually utilized in that regard. It's mainly like, okay, let's put it on chain and then see what's going to happen. And with Redstone, we are creating a set of tools to actually orchestrate this on-chain expansion to give it the true flavor that everyone is expecting.
It's some of the critical infrastructure that is, I think, allowing it to now go into true scale. Because we've talked for many years about tokenizing assets. It's frankly not that hard. The key is now utility, the infrastructure behind it, what you can do with it, making sure it's actually institutional grade and ready for activity. That's where we are now, and I'm very excited about what Redstone is doing to make that happen. You've had a lot of media interviews. I've been pretty jealous. You've been getting a lot of good journalist interviews from many top media places. They have a front row seat to also what's going on. So I think you could have probably gleaned a little bit from them. How do they feel about tokenization and RWAs? And yeah, tell us, what do they think?
Well, I think in this kind of institutional event, what media is expecting is actually really important. And we are talking not about crypto media only that is talking about price of Bitcoin or like whether NFTs are going to come back or not. We are talking about the media that is truly interested about implementation of RWAs with financial institutions. It's not me that had a lot of actually interviews. I've seen a lot of people from either different sponsors that came over here, but also biggest financial institutions having those kind of discussions with the reporters. And what the reporters told me is that the quality of the crowd has been of the highest standard. It's not only about the number of people, and we are proud to say that this year we crossed 500.
It's a record.
It's a record, but it's also about the quality. I have had 0 random conversations throughout those 3 days. And I expect nothing less and nothing more, like, let's say, happening next year and towards the end of the whole event. With reporters specifically, I do believe they were also trying to wrap their head around where are we when it comes to US market versus the global expansion. Many of the questions were asked about, all right, so if US is going to do it, like what's going Europe to, is Europe going to follow, or Asia will have like a similar expansion? And another topic that was very much clear is whether we do privacy chains or public chains. My take on that is many of the retail use cases have been happening in the public chains, and we probably are going to see that more and more. And then on the other side, we have ecosystems such as Canton that is probably more like institutional focused. And I could probably ask the audience, okay, maybe last time you can help me. Raise your hand if you ever used Canton, like yourself or your organization. All right, probably like just a couple of people, like 10%. Reason being, it's not like a retail chain, right? So it's very hard to orchestrate and like actually make use of this ecosystem because it's been designed from the very beginning to large financial institutions. So this kind of like a tug of war between public versus private is also like very interesting in the room.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch and play out because you guys will support all sides of it.
As infrastructure player, we want to make sure the usability is like the widest and people can get the most of the value. So we are happy to work with both of them. We've been the first Oracle to launch in Canton, and we do support many of the use cases out there. But we also support over 100 chains in the public realm, including Stellar, including Tempo, including Solana, and so on and so forth.
No, I mean, one of the reasons that I got attracted to the very reason to sell to Redstone is because of the reputation you guys have built as an Oracle. It is truly the best to get to Oracle to be approached by. But what I admire is that you're not just focused on that alone. We heard from Mike earlier about Redstone Credora, Redstone Settle. You guys have price feeds and other related services to some of the biggest and best RWAs that are out there today. What does this mean for Redstone as a whole, as an organization? How should people start to perceive Redstone in your new evolution?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. And I was asked about this today by one of the reporters, how we've been scaling Redstone. And I do believe from the very beginning of the journey, we have taken an approach as a startup and early organization, listening to the needs of the clients. So instead of having this huge vision of like, okay, we are going to create the best product that we envision and then throw it on the market and see whether it's going to stick, we've been listening what people actually would like to get and where's the missing piece and what are their pain points. So that's how we started with the oracles, and then we scaled it up with some of the early partners such as Mento, Pendle, EtherFi, and so on, Ethena. Not many people know we've been the first oracle to support EtherFi, Ethena, Cap, and many other players that are right now fairly big. As we were scaling, we saw that the proliferation of number of assets has been growing, has been like a tremendous. So the curators and participants in the ecosystem needed some sort of like risk framework to assess them, and we had the data. So the Credora expansion was a natural one, and I could go on and on with all the product suite that we have. But answering your question, how people should think about Redstone is we are still, of course, like an oracle, so we deliver the data feeds and provide the best experience for DeFi, but we are also an orchestration layer that supports end-to-end full cycle, life cycle of tokenized assets so that financial institutions can get the most out of it. So we provide education and advisory work through via Navigate that we announced here on stage 2 days ago. We have Credora, we have Settle for primary redemptions for RWAs, and we are going to continue building a suite of products that support just that expansion.
I'm absolutely bullish on the future of Redstone, and I'm very excited to continue to support it. And in fact, I would like to think that tokenized is another important component to helping educate and bring on, in this orchestration layer, institutions and more. So maybe I should ask the room, should we do another tokenize this again? What do you guys think? Should we do another one? Well, maybe we'll have to do it again.
Yeah, so we are happy to announce that Tokenize This 2027 is going to happen here in New York again in a year. So you are all very much invited, and we expect you all to join us. And even more so, we've got so much positive feedback that we will most likely create one satellite event throughout the year, most likely at Token 2049 in Singapore, a one-day event focused on institutional expansion in Asia. It's not settled yet. Which location is going to be for sure, but most likely Singapore, as we are getting quite a lot of requests from our partners already. So truly excited about that, and I hope to see you all and your fellows on both of those events.
Well, it makes me very thankful to continue to see Tokenize This blossom and grow, not just in New York City and in Miami where we were before, but now globally. It truly is a testament to where we are. So again, once again, thank you to all of you for showing up and making this all possible, and we hope to see you either in Singapore or next year here. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and see you.
And on the way, now that we're done with our program, as you all shuffle out, I am going to, of course, thank our sponsors beyond Redstone making this possible. So thank you to our gold sponsor, Inveniam. Inveniam definitely actually, huge shout out to Inveniam. Patrick O'Meara, if you did not catch his speech yesterday, his keynote, it will be available online as soon as we get these recordings post-produced and available for you to watch. But an amazing, amazing opportunity there. You should reach out to Inveniam. I also want to now go down the list because there are so many amazing partners from Canton to Solana Foundation, Zero Hash, Bricken, Prometheum, Denari, Alpaca, Revelis Wahab, Opacity, Rialto Markets, Bering Waters Group, Fairmint, Diamond Lake, Park 3643, Steel Wave Digital, Red Swan, Squarefoot, SQFT Protocol, RWA Foundation, and Invest Ready. And I know there will be many more next year, so thank you again, everybody. Go enjoy New York.